Okay, this video is going to be about number properties. So you've worked with some of these properties for a long time. You just might not know what they are called. So the first one we're going to talk about is called the associative property. So the associative property, what it kind of tells you is you're going to have grouping symbols. And it's not really going to matter what way you group your numbers in your number sentence, how you associate those numbers. Get it? Associative, associate. How you associate those numbers, you're still going to get the same answer. An associative property is going to be with addition and multiplication, okay? So associate, think of it this way. When you're at school, it says John often associates with Jen, okay? So he can associate with Jen, and that means like he's with her, right? Now, if we look at associating numbers, here we have, on this addition example, you have 6 plus, and then inside parentheses, these are your grouping symbols, right? So remember, you're going to have grouping symbols with associative property. So you can have 6 plus 7 plus 3 inside parentheses, and you're going to get 16, right? Because if I have 6, I'm going to change colors. I'll go blue. 6 plus 7 plus 3. 7 plus 3 is 10, right? I would do that first, and then I'm going to bring down my 6 plus. I will get 16, okay? Now, it doesn't matter if I group it here around 7 plus 3 or if I group it here around 6 plus 7, because if I do it that way, 6 plus 7 plus 3, I'm going to get 13 plus 3, which is 16, right? I'm going to get 16 no matter what, okay? So with associative property, you're going to have those grouping symbols, and it won't matter what order you group them in, but you're going to get the same answer. It doesn't matter how you associate the numbers, you will get the same answer. One thing, let's go to the multiplication one now. So same thing with multiplication. If I have 2 times 5 times 4, I'm going to do 5 times 4 first, right? And get 20, and 2 times, and I will get 40, okay? Same with if I take 2 times 5, I associate that first with your parentheses times 4. 2 times 5 is 10, times 4 is 40, okay? So it won't matter what way we group these with the parentheses, what order you group them in, how you associate those numbers with associative property, you will still get the same answer. And that is with addition and multiplication. It will not be with any subtraction or division. There is one thing that you need to watch with associative property. When you see this, sometimes you're going to think that's distributive property. It's not, okay? Because here's why. If I have 2 times 5 times 4, okay? If I take 2 times 5 and I get 10, and then I take 2 times 4 and I get 8, and then 10 times 8 is 80. You know that's wrong because we just showed you how to solve this. When you have that multiplication symbol here, that shows you that that is not distributive property. In order for a number to be distributive property, it will just be touching the parentheses on the outside, okay? And then you would distribute it on the inside, okay? So make sure you pay attention to the symbols that are there. And just because something has parentheses in it, you can't just say it's automatically associative or distributive. You need to look at the signs that are there. That's going to become more clear to you soon. Okay, commutative property. So this is the commutative property of multiplication and division. Or, I'm sorry, multiplication and addition. So commutative property is easy to remember. You think of it as a commute, like you're going to work, okay, or you're going to school. And how I say it is, I live on Morris Street in St. Mary's. So I can come up the highway, straight up the highway, and come in the front entrance of the high school, and I would get here to school, right? Or I could go up the highway, turn by Rite Aid, and come in the backside of the school. Either way I commute to school, I'm still getting there, right? So with commutative property, it doesn't matter the order that you add or multiply in, you will get the same answer. Okay, so it doesn't matter which way you go, whether you go 4 plus 5 or 5 plus 4, you're going to get the same answer. Same as with multiplication, it doesn't matter what order you multiply in, whether it's 4 times 5 or 5 times 4, you will get the same answer. So just like it doesn't matter which way I drive to school, I'm going to get there. I'm going to commute the same way. I'm going to get there. Okay, so that's commutative property. Okay, let's talk about the identity property here. Okay, so identity property, it is probably one of the most used properties that you will have this in math this year, and pretty much any year. So you're going to use identity property anytime that you rename a fraction, that you reduce a fraction in simplest form, that you are making equivalent ratios, all that stuff. Okay. So, think of it this way. When you add 0 to a number, the number stays the same, right? So this is the identity property of addition. So when you add 0 to a number, 3 plus 0 is 3, right? So whenever I add 0, the identity of the number I'm adding it to doesn't change. It stays 3, right? Like 1 million plus 0, still a million, okay? Multiplication. When you multiply a number, now you see that I crossed out this multiplication property, identity property times 0, because you know anything times 0 is going to be 0, okay? Now, identity property of multiplication, we're going to use that when you multiply by 1. So any number multiplied by 1 stays the same, right? So 3 times 1 is 3. A million times 1 is a million. 355 times 1 is 355. Now, when I'm talking about identity property and fractions and ratios and things like that, and reducing fractions, I'm talking about multiplying by 1, but I'm talking about using as a fraction. For example, if I'm going to take 3/4 and I want to make an equivalent ratio of that, I can multiply by 3 over 3, right? Is 3 over 3 equal to 1? Yes. And I will get 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12, 9/12. So I just use identity property to make an equivalent fraction or ratio, okay? Same when if I reduce this, if I divide by 3 over 3, again, I'm using, to make simplest form, I'm using identity property to do so, okay? So whenever you multiply by the identity property, by 1, the number keeps its identity, and it doesn't matter if that's 1 as in the number 1 or 3 times 2 over 2, you're still going to keep your identity, okay? So that's identity property. Okay, I want to talk about a couple other properties that are kind of neat, okay? And they should make sense to you. So whenever you add an additive inverse, you're going to get 0. And that number additive inverse, it sounds fancy, right? It's not complicated. It's any number plus its opposite, okay? So 2 plus -2, you're going to get 0. -14 plus 14, you're going to get 0, okay? So you already learned about numbers and their opposites. You already know that they have the same distance from 0 on the number line. So it should make sense to you that when you add them together, you will arrive at 0, right? You start at 0. If you put two opposites together, you should end up back at 0, okay? So I hope that makes sense. Okay, so here we have the sum of any number in 0 is that number. The product of any number in 0 is that number. Well, or any product in 1 is that number. Okay, so this is what I just went over with identity property. Okay, so that one is your identity property, what we just talked about. Okay, this one is very important. The product of any number and its reciprocal will be 1. You really need to pay attention to that one because it's going to come in handy for you. Okay, so if I take 2 and I multiply that by 1/2, you know that that's 2 over 1, right? So 2 times 1 is 2, 1 times 2 is 2, 2 over 2 is equal to 1. Any number multiplied by its reciprocal will always be 1. And that's going to come in handy when you have to start simplifying equations. So please don't forget that one. Maybe star that in your notebook, okay? All right, multiplying a sum by a number is the same as multiplying each add-in by that number and then adding the products together. All right, guys, this is what we call distributive property. We're going to do a couple more examples on that one coming up. So if I have 2 times 3, I'm going to get 6, right? 2 times 3, 6. And then 2 times b is 2b. Okay, so that is where I distribute my 2 to each term inside those parentheses. Same with A. A times B is AB. A times C is AC. I keep my addition sign. That's distributive property. Okay, guys, I'm just going to go over this one, okay, in this video. Combo meal number 2. So what we did was we said there was 1 burger, right? So that's my B. How many fries? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 F for fries, 4 fries, and 2 Cokes, 2 C. So there's my expression, B plus 4F plus 2C. So then if you look inside here in the notebook, okay, what we said was, well, can I get rid of that? Okay, so we're focusing on this combo meal. So we had B plus 4F plus 2C, right? Now, if I say to you, let's order 4 of these. I'm going to put my expression in parentheses. I'm going to put a 4 on the outside. So I'm going to use distributive property now to figure out how many burgers, fries, and Cokes I'm going to end up with, okay, using distributive property. So 4 times B is 4B plus 4 times 4F. 4 times 4 is 16. I keep my F plus 4 times 2C. 4 times 2 is 8 for my coefficient, and I keep C for my variable. So my new expression now is 4B plus 16F plus 8C. And then I can figure out how much my total cost is if I knew how much each item costs. Okay, so that is how you use distributive property. Okay, I hope this video is useful to kind of explain the properties and what they mean and how to use them. Please remember identity, property, and the fractions, and the one with multiplying by the reciprocal. That's also hugely important. All right, thanks, guys.